Book 6. Matter in the universe is supple and compliant, and the reason which controls it has no motive for ill-doing, for it is without malice, and does nothing with intent to injure, neither is anything harmed by it. By its ordinances, all things have their birth and their fulfillment. If you are doing what is right, never mind whether you are freezing with cold or beside a good fire, heavy-eyed or fresh from a sound sleep, reviled or applauded, in the act of dying or about some other piece of business. For even dying is part of the business of life, and that too no more is required of us than to see the moment's work well done. Look beneath the surface. Never let a thing's intrinsic quality or worth escape you. All material objects swiftly change, either by sublimation, if the substance of the universe be indeed a unity, or else by dispersion. Reason, the controller, has a perfect understanding of the conditions, the purpose, and the materials of its work. To refrain from imitation is the best revenge. Let your one delight and refreshment be to pass from one service to the community to another, with God ever in mind. Our master reason is something which is both self-awakened and self-directed. It cannot only make itself what it will, but also impose the aspect of its choice on anything which it experiences. All things come to their fulfillment as the one universal nature directs, for there is no rival nature, whether containing her from without, or itself contained within her, or even existing apart and detached from her. Either the world is a mere hodgepodge of random cohesions and dispersions, or else it is a unity of order and providence. If the former, why wish to survive in such a purposeless and chaotic confusion? Why care about anything save the manner of the ultimate return to dust? Why trouble my head at all? Since, do what I will, dispersion must overtake me sooner or later. But if the contrary be true, then my due reverence I stand firmly, and I put my trust in the directing power. When force of circumstance upsets your equanimity, lose no time in recovering your self-control, and do not remain out of tune longer than you can help. Habitual recurrence to the harmony will increase your mastery of it. If you had a stepmother at the same time as a mother, you would do your duty by the former, but would still turn continually to your mother. Here you have both, the court and philosophy. Time and again turn back to philosophy for refreshment, then even the court life, and yourself in it, will seem bearable. When meat and other dainties are before you, you reflect, this is dead fish, or fowl, or pig, or this Falernian is some of the juice from a bunch of grapes, my purple robe is sheep's wool stained with a little gore from a shellfish. Copulation is friction of the members and an ejaculatory discharge. Reflections of this kind go to the bottom of things, penetrating into them and exposing their real nature. The same process should be applied to the whole of life. When a thing's credentials look most plausible, lay it bare, observe its triviality, and strip it of the cloak of verbiage that dignifies it. Pretentiousness is the arch-deceiver, and never more delusive than when you imagine your work is most meritorious. Note what Crates has to say about Xenocrates himself. The vulgar confine their admiration chiefly to things of an elementary order, which exist by virtue of mere inorganic cohesion or processes of nature, things of timber and stone, for example, or groves of figs and vines and olives. Minds of a somewhat higher degree of enlightenment are attracted by things that have animation, such as flocks and herds. A further step in refinement leads to admiration of the rational soul, rational, however, not yet in the sense of being part of the universal reason, but simply as possessing certain skills in handicraft of other such talents, or even merely as owning large numbers of slaves. But the man who values a soul that is rational and universal and social no longer cares for anything else, but aims solely at keeping the temper of his own soul and all its activities rational and social, and works together with his fellows to this end. One thing hastens into being, another hastens out of it. Even while a thing is in the act of coming into existence, some part of it has already ceased to be. Flux and change are forever renewing the fabric of the universe, just as the ceaseless sweep of time is forever renewing the face of eternity. In such a running river, where there is no firm foothold, what is there for a man to value among all the many things that are racing past him? It would be like setting the affections on some sparrow flitting by, which in the self-same moment is lost to sight. A man's life is no more than an inhalation from the air and an exhalation from the blood, and there is no true difference between drawing in a single breath only to emit it again, as we do every instant, and receiving the power to breathe at all, as you did but yesterday at your birth, only to yield it back one day to the source from which you drew it. Transpiration is not a thing to be prized. We share it with the plants. Nor is respiration. We share that with the beasts of field and forest. Nor the perceptions of the senses, nor the twitchings of impulse, nor the instinct for gregariousness, nor the process of nutrition, which is in fact no more wonderful than that of excretion. So what then are we to value? The clapping of hands? No, and not the clapping of tongues either, which is all that the praise of the vulgar amounts to. Excluding then the delusions of fame, what is there left to be prized? In my judgment, this, to work out, in action and inaction alike, the purpose of our natural constitutions. That, after all, is the object of all training and all craftsmanship, for every craft aims at adapting a product to end for which it was produced. The husbandman tending his vine, the groom breaking in his horse, the kennelman training his hound, all have this purpose in view. The labours of tutors and teachers too are directed to the same end. Here then is the prize we are looking for. Once make this truly your own, and no other objective will tempt you. Abandon all the other ambitions you cherish, or else you will never be your own master, never be independent of others, or proof against passion. You will be bound to look with envy, jealousy, and suspicion at anyone who might rob you of those things, and to intrigue against anyone who happens to possess the treasure you covet for yourself. The belief that things of that kind are indispensable is sure to make for turmoil within, and too often leads on to murmuring against the gods as well, whereas a respect and esteem for your own understanding will keep you at peace with yourself, at one with mankind, and in harmony with the gods, gladly acquiescent, that is, with whatever they dispense or ordain. Above, below, and all around us whirl the elements in their courses, but virtue knows no such motions. She is a thing more divine, moving serenely onwards in ways past understanding. How strange are the ways of men! They will spare no word of praise for their contemporaries, who live in their very midst, and yet they covet greatly for themselves the praise of future generations, whom they have never seen and never will see. Almost as well grumble at not having praise from one's ancestors. Because a thing is difficult for you, do not therefore suppose it is to be beyond mortal power. On the contrary, if anything is possible and proper for a man to do, assume that it must fall within your own capacity. When an opponent in the gymnasium gashes us with his nails or bruises our head in a collision, we do not protest or take offence, and we do not suspect him ever afterwards of malicious intent. However, we do regard him with a wary eye, not in enmity or suspicion, yet good-temperedly keeping our distance. So let it be too, at other times in life. Let us agree to overlook a great many things in those who are, as it were, our fellow contestants. A simple avoidance, as I have said, is always open to us, without either suspicion or ill will. If anyone can show me, and prove to me that I am wrong in the thought or deed, I will gladly change. I seek the truth, which never yet hurt anybody. It is only persistence in self-delusion and ignorance which does harm. I do that which it is my duty to do. Nothing else distracts me, for it will be either something that is inanimate and irrational, or somebody who is misled and ignorant of the way. Be generous and liberal in your attitude to rational creatures and to the generality of material things, for you have reason and they have none. Human beings, on the other hand, have reason, so treat them in a spirit of fellowship. In all things call upon the gods for help, yet without too many scruples about the length of your prayers. 3 hours so spent will suffice. In death, Alexander of Macedon's end differed no whit from his stable boys. Either both were received into the same generative principle of the universe, or both alike were dispersed into atoms. If you were asked to spell and name Antoninus, would you rap out each letter at the top of your voice, and then, if your hearer grew angry yourself in turn? Rather, would you not proceed to enumerate the several letters quietly one by one? Well then, remember that here in life every piece of duty is likewise made up of its separate items. Pay careful attention of each of these, without fuss and without returning temper for temper, and so ensure the methodical completion of your appointed task. How barbarous to deny men the privilege of pursuing what they imagine to be their proper concerns and interests. Yet, in a sense, this is just what you are doing when you allow your indignation to rise at their wrongdoing, for after all, they are only following their own apparent concerns and interests. You say they are mistaken. Why then, tell them so, and explain it to them, instead of being indignant. Death, a release from impressions of sense, from twitchings of appetite, from excursions of thought, and from service to the flesh. Shame on the soul to falter on the road of life while the body still perseveres. Be careful not to affect the monarch too much, or to be too deeply dyed with the purple, for this can well happen. Keep yourself simple, good, pure, serious, and unassuming, the friend of justice and godliness, kindly, affectionate, and resolute in your devotion to duty. Strive your hardest to be always such a man as philosophy would have you be. Reverence the gods, succor your fellow mortals. Life is short, and this earthly existence has but a single fruit to yield, holiness within, and selfless action without. Be in all things Antoninus's disciple. Remember his insistence on the control of conduct by reason, his calm composure on all occasions, and his own holiness, the serenity of his look and the sweetness of his manner, his scorn of notoriety, and his zeal for the mastery of facts, how he would never dismiss a subject until he had looked thoroughly into it and understood it clearly, how he would suffer unjust criticisms without replying in kind, how he was never hasty and no friend to tale-bearers, shrewd in his judgment of men and manners, yet never censorious, wholly free from nervousness, suspicion, and over-subtlety, how easily satisfied he was in such matters as lodging, bed, dress, meals, and service, how industrious and how patient, how, thanks to his frugal diet, he could remain at work from morning till night without even attending to the calls of nature until his customary hour, how firm and constant he was in his friendships, tolerating the most outspoken opposition to his own opinions, welcoming any suggested amendments, what reverence, untainted by the smallest trace of superstition, he showed to the gods. Remember all this, so that when your own last hour comes, your conscience may be as clear as his.